Thanks for joining me again this week. Recent actions by our government, specifically Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, are having real consequences for the people who live and work here in Montgomery County and frankly across the nation. As many of you know, multiple executive orders and statements are threatening the loss of federal jobs by the thousands and vital services as well. There have been reports the White House is preparing an executive order to fire thousands of federal Department of HHS employees. That's not just a bureaucratic shakeup. That's not an efficiency move. It's an attack on the people and the institutions that protect public health and advance medical research. The U.S. Agency for International Development has been shut down by DOGE, affecting nonprofits and people here and around the world. People have lost food, they're losing access to medicine and other supports that the United States helped provide in the third world. This is an important program for the United States to demonstrate the kind of country we wanted people to perceive us as. Now he's taking that away. This will not end well. While the courts have been blocking and delaying some of DOGE's directives, the threat is real that DOGE will try to dismantle our nation's lifeline to science, research, and the potential cures for everything from cancers to lethal viruses. As you may know, HHS has a large presence here in Montgomery County, including the FDA and NIH, two of the largest federal employers in our county. The work they do affects everything from drug approvals to cutting-edge medical research, and this isn't just about one department or one agency. There are 77,550 people, federal employees, who live in Montgomery County, and about 48,433 federal jobs based here. This is a massive part of our local economy, but it's just not federal employees who are at risk. All the contractors who support government operations, NGOs that rely on U.S. aid, funding, and small businesses, from restaurants to dry cleaners, are all caught up in the ripple effect. The economic damage from this disruption is far greater than just the number of people laid off. Families are being put in impossible positions. People who have served the public for years, sometimes decades, are living in fear that they'll end up on a list, that their careers will be derailed simply because they did their jobs in the public interest. People are already being fired for doing something simple as going to a diversity training that their department's mandated to go to, and that is a reason to fire somebody. I don't know what planet we've landed on, but this is not a good one. While we can't predict what will happen next, we want to provide access to support. Montgomery County is working closely with state and union partners, nonprofit organizations, and our congressional delegation to provide resources. You can find them at montgomerycountymd.gov and click on Federal Worker Resources on our homepage. I want to thank Representative Raskin, Senator Van Hollen, and Senator Alsobrooks for hosting helpful telephone town halls this week for those residents and families impacted. We are fortunate that amidst the chaos and confusion of all these decisions, we have a strong and experienced congressional delegation fighting for us. We also have our Gilchrist Immigrant Resource Center, WorkSource Montgomery, and other county jobs resources. We know this situation is creating stress and anxiety for many, and we encourage anyone who is struggling to seek support. If you know anyone who is in need of immediate mental health support and needs a resource, please call our crisis center at 240-777-4000 or dial 988. I know how difficult and frustrating this is. We knew this administration would bring challenges, but the level of instability we're seeing was beyond what anyone expected. Nobody expected the closure of all these federal agencies, the dismantling of so many federal programs, and there's more to come. Montgomery County stands with our federal workers, our businesses, and our communities. We're going to fight to protect your jobs, your rights, and your livelihoods. Our county government, along with our state government and congressional delegations, is going to do everything possible we can to bring stability here. This week I was joined in our media briefing by Maryland's Secretary of Labor, Portia Wu. Here is some of the important information that she shared.
We've seen that this could be coming for some time, so we have already started gearing up to make sure we have additional resources here at the state level. We're fortunate, actually, that Maryland's economy has been quite strong in many ways. So we do still have a lot of open positions in the state, but we are definitely going to be calling on our colleagues at the job centers around the state at the local level. But we are preparing. We have been preparing. We are looking at additional options to make sure we have the capacity to answer questions and support people.
This week, I'm vetoing Bill 2224, Taxation, Collection of Development Impact Taxes, because it defers the collection of revenue from impact taxes, which are specifically intended to pay for all infrastructure that development requires: schools, roads, sidewalks, transit, and more. This delay will result in a loss of revenue in the early years of the capital improvement program for the next 6 years, and will require reductions or delays to critical county projects. For years, we've seen repeated cuts to impact taxes by different councils, but there's never been a replacement funding source identified. That has had real consequences. In just the past decade, impact tax collections have dropped over 74%, from 61 million in 2014 to just 15.6 million in 2024. That's a $45 million loss in funding for schools and transportation projects. And you know who winds up paying for this? You do. Developers continue to get extraordinary breaks on extraordinarily expensive properties, while the residents of the county are expected to pick up the bill. And now this bill would delay the collection of another $27.8 million over the next 6 years, without a plan to replace it. That is not fiscally responsible. The reality is simple. If development doesn't pay its fair share, then one of the two things is going to happen here. Either taxpayers end up footing the bill, or we simply don't build the infrastructure we need. Neither of those outcomes is acceptable. We're already seeing the effects of declining revenues. This year alone, we had to delay, reduce, or eliminate funding for projects, including sidewalk and bikeway improvements on Goldsboro Road, Tuckerman Lane, and Bradley Boulevard, the Forest Glen Passageway, and school additions at Paint Branch High School, Mill Creek Town Elementary, and Blake High School. I've said many times that we should replace impact taxes with a similar system that Northern Virginia has. That way, developers would contribute to infrastructure, but their costs would be spread out over a much longer period of time, and the actual cost that they would pay in total is less than what they're paying now. It would also allow the county to bond on those revenues, which we can't do now. This bill doesn't fix that problem. It doesn't fix the problem of developers paying too much with the impact taxes. What it does do is put the burden of not collecting these taxes onto you. It delays funding for already planned projects. Until we implement a better system, I cannot support further cuts that weaken our ability to invest in our communities. We need to be able to fund schools, roads, and transit improvements that are critical to smart and responsible growth. And that's why I'm vetoing this bill. If the council overrides my veto, we will then have to send the council recommended delays in capital project funding because the loss in revenue is going to be immediate. I look forward to working with the council to actually find the solution. These issues are also tied to years of maintaining a flat level of bond funding, even as inflation has reduced the buying power of those dollars. I mean, imagine projects that were put into the CIP 4 or 5 years ago and the inflation that's incurred with no adjustment to the amount of bonds we're putting out there. All this means is that we do less and provide less for our community, and there's no reason for us to be doing that other than our stubbornness to make the changes that we need. In better news, on the economic development front, I'm pleased to let you know I just received news that our Technology Innovation and Founders Fund is off to an exciting start. 144 early-stage companies applied for commercialization grants. That is an impressive number, and it clearly demonstrates that we're addressing a need, and a lot of innovators in Montgomery County are working to get their discoveries to market, which will enable them to hire and grow jobs, and through all that, grow the economy. Investing in programs like these is more important now than ever, given the many uncertainties at the federal level. The fund application is now under review, and next month we expect to commit the full $10 million allocated to help these startups grow right here in Montgomery County. We'll also be providing coaching to companies to help them succeed. Our team has also been busy with the new jobs program, which is, by its design, having a slower implementation period. Employees have to have been working the qualifying high-paid job for at least 6 months. The period doesn't begin until all of the employees have been hired, and it's 6 months before funds can be dispersed then. In the meantime, our team is handling inquiries and applications. Though this program was announced as a job creation tool, we're finding the strongest interest in it is among businesses thinking of moving to Montgomery County instead of those already here. Either way, it's another tool in our business support toolbox. We also have been busy allocating $661,000 for 25 different businesses through our MOVE grants. With 6 more applicants in the pipeline, we have earmarked an additional $301,000, bringing our total to $963,000, which is slightly above the $950,000 that was budgeted for this year. MOVE grants are given only to businesses that are signing new leases or expanding in Montgomery County. For all 3 of these programs, commercialization, jobs, and MOVE grants, the funding is tied to business growth. I'm happy to see the interest in these programs, and we're trying to work hard to make sure that for each of these programs, the award of these funds is helping to attract, launch, or retain businesses in the county. Economic development takes real work. We're not just throwing money around, we're making targeted investments to support companies that want to be here and grow here and create long-term success for our economy. We're going to keep moving forward, and I encourage businesses looking to expand in Montgomery County to take advantage of these programs. This week, I stood with Councilmember Kristen Mink as she introduced a new bill to help protect renters from unfair practices and unscrupulous landlords. A vast majority of landlords in this county have good track records. This legislation will help us with those who do not. I've heard the stories from many residents across the county. Apartments with broken essential services that never get fixed, elevators that don't run, amenities that were promised but never delivered, landlords tacking on bogus fees, and disregard for tenants' rights. That's not the kind of community we want to live in. That's why this bill, Bill 625, is so important. It addresses a loophole and will allow the Office of Consumer Protection the authority to step in when landlords engage in deceptive practices. Right now, defective tenancies, those situations where your rental isn't up to livable standards, are outside the scope of consumer protection laws. This bill removes that exemption so landlords are treated like any other merchant selling goods or services to the public. Renters pay to have safe housing, and that housing that meets the basic standards. This bill is about fairness and accountability. Landlords have a responsibility to provide safe, livable housings, to be honest in their dealings with the tenants. Renters shouldn't have to navigate a legal maze just to get what they're entitled to. These stronger protections will help make sure everyone in our community has access to decent, fair housing. I want to thank Councilmember Kristen Mink, Council President Kate Stewart, Council Vice President Will Jawando, and Councilmember Dawn Lutke for supporting this bill. As we see more federal workers returning to the office, it's no surprise that traffic's already increasing on our local roads and highways. If you've noticed longer commutes this week, you're not alone. I've seen them too. That's why I want to encourage everyone to consider taking public transit, whether it's ride-on, Metrobus, or Metro Rail, or even carpooling. It's not just about avoiding traffic and the stress of driving, it's also one of the best things you can do for the environment. For information on MC.dot programs and services, including downloading the Ride On Trip Planner app, visit montgomerycountymd.gov/DOT. That's a wrap for today. I hope you have a great week, and I'll be back again next week.